Hi, everyone. It's easy in an event like this with so much going on at the summit uh, to forget that it's also an opportunity to present research. Believe it or not, MIT does do research. So we're really delighted for this event to be able to also be a opportunity to present your research. So, I'm Mark Friedman. Among the various hats that I wear, I'm a research affiliate here at MIT, and happy to be here and help lead this set of presentations. Our first presentation is by Jeya Amantha, and forgive me for any mistakes that I make, who is affiliated with the Research Association and Evidence-Driven Learning and Innovation and College of Arts and Letters at Michigan State University. And her presentation is on AI, can GenAI tools design and evaluate course outlines better than we think? So please come on up.
Okay, hi everyone. So it's a bit nerve-wracking to be the first to present, I guess. So my name is Jeya Amantha. I'm from Michigan State University. I'm a research associate in MSU for the past 1 year. So a bit about myself. I'm actually from Malaysia. If you don't know where Malaysia is, we are right in between Thailand, Singapore, and Indonesia. Awesome food, thank you. And we are super famous for the past 11 years, I say, because of the missing airlines, MH370, if you knew about it. So that's a bit about Malaysia. And about me, I started teaching in 2003 as a senior lecturer in Malaysian Polytechnic system. So I've been teaching engineering for quite a bit, where in 2010, we were introduced to outcome-based education as a reform to the curriculum design method that we use to design our programs. And after my PhD in 2016, I was an assistant professor in University of Science Malaysia, teaching instructional design, human-computer interaction, and visual communication, where I continued using OBE. And FYI, in Malaysia, we do not have TAs and assistants to teachers in terms of teaching. So everything is on you. So we design the curriculum and we also teach. But of course, there is a governing body and so on. So that's a bit about my background. In terms of research, I would say my focus has been a lot about how to use education technology. So focusing on behavior research and so on. And I was one of these person who, when AI was coming out, it's like, okay, I'm not going to step foot into AI. I'm just going to stick with what I know, and I'm going to do research on only that. And the first maybe paper related to AI at that time that I did was on educational chatbots, which was published end of 2021. And I decided to keep away from ChatGPT. When colleagues started contacting me, hey, let's do some study on, how people are using ChatGPT. I said, no, I'm going to wait first. This can be maybe, the next MOOC, where everybody started doing research on MOOC, and then suddenly it has died down a bit right now. But, I focused on other parts of AI, so such as last year I published a paper on facial emotion recognition, and how it aligns with how we evaluate students in terms of emotions in using technology, which was published in Computers in Education. So that was one of my AI works. But as much as I didn't want to work with ChatGPT, when I came to MSU, the first project that I was involved with was using ChatGPT for designing courses. And this project was a project that we did last year, July 2024. On net science instructors, and the outcomes were published in a natural science journal, as you can see there in the image, using SWOT analysis. So we focus on exposing instructors in how to prompt, to generate image, to do gamings, and so on. So this was one activity that we did. And the question that I asked myself, why only ChatGPT? Why not other Gen Is? Are we really exposing our instructors to other forms of tools, or are we limiting ourselves to just ChatGPT? So this is something that I came up with. So let's have an AI showdown. Let's compare. So first thing I did, what do we know about using GenAI as a whole in education? And this is like based on maybe very short search in Scopus. This is what I found out. Most of our research in GenAI in education was focused on ChatGPT. So this was in June 2025. So whatever we are conveying to people in terms of research is basically what we find out from ChatGPT. We don't know much about how the other tools actually perform. So this was one of the motivations, as what I think somebody presented yesterday. It's all about curiosity, right? So this is how it started. So as we know, not one single model is best at everything. Like, for example, this image was generated by ChatGPT. If you can see, there's a mistake there. All right. So what I did is I compared 6 different tools, okay, Gen AIs, and I posed this question. So my background as an instructional designer and a person who actually taught instructional design for like 6 years. So I focused on that particular course. Okay, and these are my research questions. And basically, what I wanted to do is actually get these different ChatGPTs, these Gen AIs to design their own curriculum and get them to evaluate each another. So there was no human intervention at all. So they are going to learn, compete with each other, I guess. So the study design, as you can see, I've only used the free tools. I did not have a subscribed version for any of this. And except for Cloud, which I had to log in to actually use the free version also. And there were 2 standardized prompts that I created. The first one is to generate the course outline, and the second one is the rubric to evaluate. So if you can see, this is the first prompt, which focus on US higher education and using UDL. And this is the second prompt for the rubric. Okay. And based on the outcome, this is how each Gen AI actually evaluated each another. If you see, ChatGPT evaluated itself as the highest. Lowest is Meta, according to ChatGPT. And you have the others like Perplexity and so on. So overall, I will say Perplexity did the best. And the lowest performance is Meta and Copilot. This is according to, of course, the Gen AIs, right? And based on the mean score, if you can see, yes, Perplexity did well. Number 2, Gemini, and then Cloud. And how they were different. If you can see in terms of learning objectives and also developing the Bloom's taxonomy or utilizing Bloom's taxonomy. For Perplexity and Cloud, it focus more on higher order thinking. ChatGPT and Meta focus more on mid-level skills. And Copilot and Gemini on lower order skills. Next, in terms of clarity and measurability of learning outcomes, you can see Perplexity, Gemini, and Cloud received the highest average score, but Gemini did use models such as ABCD in their course outline. Meta and Perplexity used UDL principles. So one common aspect is all tools actually develop 3 relevant objectives, and those that use the highest order in Bloom appear to have the most positive outcome. Next is alignment between objectives, instruction, and assessment. Perplexity did the best, followed by Cloud and ChatGPT and Gemini. So if I continue, all the graphs and images were developed using Napkin AI. So next is in terms of instructional activities and engagement strategies. ChatGPT and Copilot focus more on the traditional approach, such as having lectures and so on. Gemini and Perplexity was a bit different. They introduced more interactive learning, like think, pair, share, role-playing, and so on. And one interesting aspect, Cloud was the only one that introduced like a structured scaffolding in terms of how we can have or we can teach a certain topic in, for example, in 3 days. And next, in terms of UDL integration and accessibility, Perplexity did the best for both. But if we see, Gemini didn't do so well for UDL integration, but they did very well in terms of accessibility. And in terms of rubric and assessment strategies, all 6 Gen AI tools had very similar self-check quizzes and peer reviews in their assessment, but ChatGPT was the only one that was unique enough to integrate reflection journals. In terms of quality, ChatGPT, Cloud, and Gemini align their evaluation criteria with ID principles like UDL and ABCD. Cloud had a very wide scale in terms of evaluation between 0 to 25, but they emphasize a lot about knowledge, which was very different compared to Copilot, Perplexity, and Meta, which focus more on rapid peer evaluation. Still have time? Okay, conclusion and future direction. So in terms of key findings, Perplexity, Cloud, and Gemini constantly produce stronger learning-centered outlines. ChatGPT demonstrated strong instructional consistency, but showed limitation in terms of rubric depth and accessibility. Copilot and Meta, yes, exhibited weaker instructional coherence, but all platforms, in terms of the effectiveness of the platform, I will say that those that prioritize clarity, accessibility, and real-world application receive the strongest evaluation from other Gen Is. But all Gen I failed to actually integrate affective and psychomotor domains, which was something that back home when we did OBE, when we tend to design curriculum, we tend to integrate all three, like cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So even though it was not prompted yet, I was hoping that maybe the Gen AIs will actually introduce those parts, especially like right now we are talking about ethics and so on, right? But even when I discuss this with faculty members, when you say about affective domain, people go like, what do you mean by affective domain, right? So maybe it's something we can look into in the future, and how we can integrate the affective domain in evaluating things related to ethics, because it deals with emotions. And in terms of future research, at the time when I wrote this paper, I didn't look into Grok, but obviously in the past maybe a few weeks or so, Grok has really boomed. And a lot of them are actually using it. And yesterday I was listening to a podcast and they were saying that, if you're not using Grok, you're losing out. So I did test Grok, and I like the fact that it had a very nice way of interacting. It had emojis, and it was a bit funny, I think a bit humorous. It had a bit of humor, and it was a bit witty, as they say. But that was nice. And one thing that I also found out that when I used Meta, the first thing that Meta asked was, what was my age? So I'm not sure whether the output was based on my age or was it like a general output. So those are the fun facts that I found out by doing this experiment. So thank you very much. If there's any questions, can I take questions?
Yeah, we have time for a couple questions, if there are any.
Yes.
If you want to come down, you can.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay, so hi, my name is Vincent. I'm a high school teacher and I teach my students prompt engineering. And I want to implement a learning system similar to the study you were doing. So I think that the type of work you're doing is very, I think the type of work you're doing is very important because there aren't many studies like this. And I saw that we had the presentation with Google Gemini and how they're going to be integrating educational aspects into their products. So I think studies like this, I would want to be conducting myself as well. But my question is, I know that from my knowledge that the system prompt of every model greatly affects the output that you give it. And when I refer to the system prompt, it means the pre-instructions given to each model before it ever reaches you as the user. So there's a kind of a problem with like bias there in terms of like the outputs you can get with these types of models. And this kind of ties into fine tuning. So I was wondering if you did any fine tuning of training data or worked with any system prompts or changed the system prompts yourself before you actually evaluated all the models?
In terms of the two promptings that you're referring to, yes, I did create the prompts first, beginning, and I tested it first. before testing it in the other GenAIs. But when I tested it on the other GenAIs, I made sure that I used a newly installed web browser, which I usually don't use Chrome, so to make sure that there is no bias in terms of the promptings and so on.
Okay.
But thank you very
Cool.
much for your
Yeah, thanks.
question. Yes.
You showed a bunch of charts and some assessments of the various strategies that the GenAIs generated. Were those assessments and the data for those charts also come from the other GenAIs?
Yes, it was. It was evaluated by all the other GenAIs because in the second phase, I provided the prompts. So the other GenAIs actually evaluated the outcomes from.
So even the subjective evaluations that we saw of their strategies also
Yeah.
came from the GenAIs.
From the
Oh,
GenAIs.
cool.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.